Have you ever heard the phrase, the horse will always change when the barn is in sight? Is that what happened last night in San Francisco? Got these young boys on the ropes, game six Clay. All we got to do is show up. It's over. We done been done this, right? And, fan base was feeling good. We were all feeling good. Reason to believe, but this is why they play the games. This is why they play the games. Let's talk about what the Kings did before we talk about what the Warriors didn't do, right? And it was a very precise game plan that was executed by this young Kings team on the road facing elimination. The first thing that jumped out was the charge calls, right? The pass and crash calls. I believe there were 3 of them in that first half, and particularly on the short roll. It's a high pick and roll with Steph. It could be Draymond. It could be GP2, whoever it is coming downhill off that roll. It was Keegan Murray. It was Trey Lyles. They were all prepared to step up high and get there and take that charge. It's good preparation by the coaching staff and execution from those young players. But then the other aspect of it was you saw Draymond. He gets that first pass and crash, right? Mind you, he's coming off the bench still. Very next possession, what do? They go and they post up Sabonis. Something that you just haven't seen very often in this series. Just give him a block. You know he's going over that right shoulder. But the intent was not to score. The intent was to get a quick second foul on Draymond Green. And you're like, okay, fine, right? But then it all started to kind of, obviously you want foul trouble on star players no matter what, right? But then when you saw the chess move from Mike Brown of going small with Terrence Davis instead of Alex Len and bumping Trey Lyles to the 5 spot, you understood why it was so critical for them to get Draymond in foul trouble. That was part of the equation, right? Let's get Looney off the floor, and now Draymond's in foul trouble. They're screwed, right? That was a perfect storm to go along with the surprise adjustment of playing even smaller. Let me shout out today's sponsor, SoRare NBA, the future of fantasy sports, online NBA trading cards. Take a walk with me here because I had to card swap Ja Morant as your playing deck is getting dwindled down now that we're into the second rounds of the playoffs. And I kind of had a little bit of a conflict here, right? My initial gut is like, hey, let's get the chef, man. I don't have him in my deck, right? But I am too competitive to be a homer. I got to take someone who's already in the second round. I kind of wanted to go Jaylen Brown just because he's such a stat stuffer and he's so productive. But I went with the Slim Reaper, Kevin Durant. This week is wrapping up. It's still not too late to join my custom league, Athletic Alchemy. The link is in the description. SoRare NBA. Now, if you want to talk refereeing, I don't think Dub Nation, we have much to complain about. We were sent to the line more often. I think the refs, there were bad calls, but I thought that they made a lot of makeup calls. They tried to even it out. If they blew one, then they'd give you one, right? That type of deal. And so you can't really complain about the refereeing. No, this was about a Kings team coming in there younger, hungrier, and with an adjustment that the Warriors weren't ready for, and they got blown off the floor. They didn't deserve to win that game. So now, game 7, they got to win on the road. What do you think's going to happen? How are you feeling, Dub Nation? And it's funny, fandom, there's always going to be a group of fans where they're not going to say what they think is going to happen. They're going to say what they want to happen, right? They're going to speak it into existence. The Dubs, they're going to get it done, right? And that's perfectly fine if that's the approach you take. That ain't me. That ain't me, right? That's not how I've built this channel and this brand. I come here and I tell you what I believe to be the truth. The truth of the matter is, it looks like we down bad. It looks like this is going to be very difficult to overcome, right? If you were going to ask me what's going to happen in game 7, I think this is it for us this season, And it's funny that it feels almost fitting in the sense of we introduced the small ball era. It's only right to get knocked out by a small ball adjustment and playing a center off the floor, right? Because that was really the strategy. Like the talk from the series before game 6 leading up to it was like, damn, Looney's out playing Sabonis. Like that was the unaccounted equation from the Kings side. And the Kings fans, it was like, dang, okay, right? And so what does Mike Brown do? Well, let's get Looney off the floor. He knows better than anyone how much he struggles with the stretch five and playing out in space. And the one thing is, as good as Looney has become, he's become such a better finisher, a better passer out of the short roll. The rebounding speaks for itself. As he's aged, and he's still relatively young, but he has a lot of mileage on him. You don't really want him switching out on the perimeter anymore, right? Remember that was his calling card early on against the Chris Paul and James Harden Rockets, especially against Fox and Monk. You can't ask him to switch out there. And now you have Trey Lyles picking and popping. They're spreading it out, and it's going to play Looney off the floor in this Game 7 if you assume they're going to stick with this strategy. So what is the counter? What is the counter, right? Well, you say, okay, well, Draymond's at the 5, Wiggins at the 4. Do you go GP2? Do you go Dante? And here's the other aspect, man. I mean, we're leaking oil here. I talked last video about Dante and his struggles. He's shooting 30% from behind the arc. He's shooting 30% from inside the arc. He's just been ineffective on both ends of the floor. And at a certain point here, you got to try somebody else. And I brought it up. Moody continued to look good in his little bit of minutes, right? I guess we've got to address Jordan Poole. We got to address him. Listen, man, again, doing what I do, I try to remain objective. We all have built-in biases and favorites, and we kind of make picks and stuff like that. And so I try to give him credit where credit is due. Like, hey, Game 5, I thought that was his best game. I thought that he gave a better effort defensively. His shot selection was fine, but if you've been paying attention, this is who Poole's been the entire season. And you can go back to my channel and look at the videos. And there are people like, oh, you're hating. No, this is who he's been, man. I'm not surprised. But the question is, do they die on this sword? Is Kerr going to die on the sword of Dante and Poole and GP2? The other aspect of this, when I said we're leaking oil, GP2, 10 minutes, GP2 is not healthy. We know he's tough. We know he's a soldier. He's not moving right out there. And I'm sure it will be revealed, at some point when the offseason comes, whenever that is. But I think there's a reason we're not seeing much of GP2. He's not healthy. And so now that leaves Moody, and that leaves, yes, Jonathan Kuminga. That's, if you're going to go small, right, then it opens up a situation for him to all of a sudden kind of save the day here in this Game 7. Now, is that fair to ask him, right? Can you dust him off after you've basically DNP'd him the entire series? These are the choices they have to live with. And I know that the people that have been bashing Kerr all season long are probably grinning right now. Like, see, now you need him. Hey, this is, again, it's going to be a tough situation. So here's what I'll say. And I realize some of you probably didn't even want to click on this video, but I felt like I wanted to touch base with you along the way. And I wanted to give the Kings credit. Kings fans that have been tuning into the channel, I appreciate y'all. I try to remain objective. I'll take my shots, and it's all tongue in cheek when I'm talking trash. But hey, man, y'all have to be feeling good after that and kind of that chess move that Mike Brown made. I do wonder, because Sabonis was in foul trouble, and it actually helped the Kings, right? And you wonder, is Mike Brown willing in this Game 7 to sit Sabonis, even if he's not in foul trouble, and just be like, hey, man, for this one right now, we're better off in this matchup? I feel like he does have, I don't even call it the guts. I think he has the relationship with Sabonis to do it. And I think Sabonis is enough of a team player to do it without an issue. And so I think that we're going to see the same look, and maybe even more of it. It's going to be tough. And the reason why I am picking officially the Kings to win this Game 7, I know my initial series pick was Warriors in 7. What I didn't take into account was the splits between games. And that's what you saw with Steph, right? Here, I guess I got to talk about Steph and Klay here. And if you want to spin things positively, Dub Nation, you say, well, could Steph and Klay really play any worse? And let's not talk about the numbers. Overall, you saw Klay in transition, just a disaster, right? And you saw him forcing the Game 6 mantra early in that game, which made him highly inefficient. And then Steph, man, what fatigue makes cowards of us all, right? Father Time is undefeated. We can use all the cliche terms you want because they're true. And in being an old hooper, this is what it is. If you're 35 and older, you know this to be true, hoopers. Like, you go to the courts on Monday and you have a bunch of run. You could show back up Wednesday, but you certainly ain't going to have the same legs you had on Monday, probably not till Friday, unless you rest. And so Steph looks tired. You have the quick turnaround, and now an even quicker turnaround on the road in Sacramento at noon. And that's really what's got me picking against my Dubs. It's the quick turnaround. If this game was Monday, I'd feel a lot better about our chances. And I also think because of this quick turnaround, I think Kerr has to lean into the youth. They're going to go small. That means Wiggins at the 4. Draymond's got to find a way to stay out of foul trouble, right? But you're going to have to see Moody and you're going to have to see Kuminga. The proof is in the pudding at this point. I don't want to hear about contracts. I don't want to hear about trust. Dante and Poole have failed in this series. And at a certain point, you have to have the courage to try something different. And so if the Warriors are somehow going to pull this game off on the road on Game 7, I think a big part of it is going to be the young guys and their young legs showing up and making plays. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean a lot of stats, a lot of numbers. It just has to be effort plays, hustle, defense, and raising the energy and lifting the core vets, these guys that, you know, are in the twilights of their prime, right? You're asking too much of them in this series, in this pace. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just how I'm feeling, y'all. I wanted to touch base with the YouTube audience. I've got a full breakdown of the game where we can talk about, again, the transition defense, Jordan Poole just falling flat on his face, Steph being lethargic. It's really the basics of they've gone 5 out. Now it's Monk and Fox downhill in space. It's going to take Looney off the floor. But at the same time, can Steph muster the energy? Can Klay? I said it in the breakdown. I was like, Klay, it's like his mind wasn't there. He wasn't tuned in like he needed to be. And Steph, it felt like his body wasn't there. And so that's a wicked combination when you combine it with the speed and pace of this. And hey, the Kings, man, they're cocky and they're confident. And right now they should be, right? Malik Monk's feeling himself. And stylistically, I think we're on the ropes here and we're really in trouble. But if you've been following the channel long enough, there's been quite a few alchemy jinxes. There's been quite a few alchemy jinxes when it comes to picking big games. And so I got the Kings pulling this off tomorrow afternoon. We'll see what happens. It's got to play out. I'll be back with the breakdown of that. And whether we see the Lakers or we jump into the offseason, I think there's a lot of stuff to cover about this team moving forward, regardless of this outcome tomorrow. Give me your picks in the comments and your thoughts on what is the adjustment to this small ball lineup, because there has to be something done. I don't think they can approach it and just say, hey, okay, fine, we'll just keep Looney out there. I think that this was a very good move from Mike Brown. So Steve Kerr, it's your turn. What it do? Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.